Welcome everyone. If you've clicked on this video, this means you are new to the ClassIn app and want to learn the basics and fundamentals. Well, you're in the right place. In this video, you will learn everything you need to know about how to start using this app. Let's hand it over to Sean to get you started on your journey.
Right, so before we can begin teaching, let's take a look at what our computer needs to run this application. The first thing we're going to take a look at is the CPU, right, or your processor, and you need a minimum of an i5 processor or a Ryzen 5. If you have i3 or Celeron, your computer might not be able to handle all the applications and all the processes that you're going to be using. For example, if you're recording your class and you have to share the screen and play a video, the app might crash, thus making you look quite unprofessional, and then you would have to re-enter the classroom. So just keep it simple, best is i5. Next, we're going to take a look at the system. Now, most computers are running Windows 10 or 11, so I guess no need to worry about this here. If you are still running on XP, it's probably time for an upgrade. Right, the next thing we're going to take a look at is RAM, and it's not super important, but if you're going to be recording your classes, then it will play a factor. Resolution is not important at all because you might be teaching on your iPad or your tablet, so it doesn't really matter what size the screen is. Obviously, the bigger the better, so that you can see more clearly. Right, next we're going to take a look at network, and while they do recommend that 2 megabits per second is enough for you to run the application, I personally believe that you would need at least 6 megabits per second to run it perfectly, and I'm going to show you why now. So if we take a look at our ClassIn app, if we go down here to settings, we're going to go to device testing. Once we click on device testing, you're going to see over here that it gives us all of our information. So you can see I'm running Windows 7, I have a Ryzen 5, which is like the equivalent of an i5. I've used up a little bit of memory, and here you can see that I've got about 96 to about 98 milliseconds of network. It's also got 10 to 5% loss. Now, the reason that it's doing this is because I'm running a 2 megabit per second line, right? It's not the best. It should be better. What you should be looking for is anywhere between, I would say, like 25 to 35 megabits per second. Okay, that would be the most optimum for you to run. You would experience no loss. Once you start getting a loss, that's when you start having a delay between you and your students, and then the class can become really, really messy. Now, if you want to go take a look at your computer's network speed, you can go over here to speedtest.net. I'll leave a link in the description below. Once you've gone onto the app, you can just click go. Right? What it's going to do is it's going to scan your network and it's going to tell you how fast your download speed is and how fast your upload speed is. Now, here's the kicker. Right, as you can see, it's telling me that I have a 37 or 38 megabit per second line, right? But that's not really what I'm getting, right? It has to do with multiple factors, but you can kind of think of it like if there was a hallway and students were walking in the hallway, the more students that we have, the more crowded the network is going to become. So in this instance, there's multiple factors we need to look at. How many walls are in between you and your router, how many people are using the network, and what they're using it for. That will determine the ultimate speed that you get at the end. Right, so since we're doing our device testing, let's move on to our next tab, which is going to be our camera. And as you can see me clearly in the picture. So if you're able to see yourself, then click able to view. If you can't see yourself, you might have to choose between the cameras that you have, right? So for example, like my computer has an integrated camera, so there's a camera already in the computer. Might have to select that. I also have a separate camera that I'm using, which has better quality, right? So obviously select that, and then you're going to click able to view. Next, we're going to test our speakers. So we're going to play the sound over here, listen for the sound, and then select the correct option. Right, so that was a saxophone. Going to select saxophone and click able to hear. Right, and this part is going to sound a little bit funny, but there's no way for me to change it or edit it. So what we need to do is click record, and then we're going to record ourselves talking. As long as we can see this green bar moving up and down, everything is okay. So we're going to click able to view and hear. Right, and then as you can see, it says device condition normal. So everything is working perfectly. Our system's good, camera's good, speaker is good, microphone is good, and we are ready to go. Right, so when you get started with ClassIn, it's going to look like this. You're going to have no classes, you're going to have no friends, nothing is going to be here, but after some time, eventually, it's going to look like this. Right, as you can see, more classes, a lot more going on, got a ton of messages coming through. Now, it might seem a little bit intimidating to you because you don't really understand what's going on, but that is exactly why we're here. So let's start off with the far left-hand side. Right at the top here, we can click on our profile to add a profile picture and change our username. Next, we've got the home screen button. It tells us how many messages we have. Following that, we have a to-do list, and because this is just a basic of how to use ClassIn, we're not going to focus on to-do for now. Contacts, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. Any classes you have and any friends that have invited you on ClassIn are all going to be over here. We have our drive. I'm not going to focus on that now. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. Right, let's move on to calendar. Now, calendar is great because when we select calendar, if we hover over it, you can see how many classes we have on a day or in a month. If I click on the specific day, you can see that these are all the classes that are scheduled that day. If I want to, I can prepare for those classes, but again, that is a video for another time. If we hover over the calendar, you can see how many classes you have on a day or in the month. What's great about this is we can go back and check the amount of classes that we've had throughout the month, and that way we have a good idea of what we've done and what we will still be doing. If we select the day, you can see the classes we have for that day, and we can also prepare for those classes. Right, if we click on Blackboard, that's going to take us to a Blackboard simulation of how our classroom will look. That is where we're going to be doing the bulk of this training so that you can understand the Blackboard, because it is the most important part of teaching on ClassIn. But what I want to do is I actually want to go to settings over here first, and I want to go to system settings. So under general, we have 9 icons that we can select or deselect. Now, the first 2 aren't super important. The next ones are kind of important. That's really what we want to take a look at here. Enable messaging notifications, so a sound will play when you receive a message. This is great for teachers if they want to make sure that they don't miss any incoming messages from students or from consultants. Enable lesson notifications. This will let you know 1 hour before your lesson, 20 minutes before your lesson, and when your lesson has actually started. Enable activity notifications, so when your students have completed assignments or anything on their to-do list, you'll also get notified by that. The next one is high DPI. So what this is essentially is that it makes the graphics on your computer a lot better, and it also increases how your mouse moves. It makes the fluidity of your mouse better. The next one is display keyboard automatically on touchscreen. If you're using an iPad and you touch the screen, it will automatically display the touchscreen. I'm not using an iPad, so I'm not going to select that. Then we have eye care mode. So what's great about this is usually we have a heavy blue light on our eyes with our computers. If we click the eye care mode button, then it takes that blue light from bright blue to a warm, easy color for our eyes to see. It's much better if you have like 4 or 5 hours of classes. Right, and as for general settings, that's all we're going to cover right now. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the drive. Now, the drive is probably one of the most important tools that we have on our home screen, and it becomes really important when we go onto our Blackboard and in our classes. So, as we open our drive, it's going to take us to home, and basically home is just going to allow us to access any PPTs or any PDFs that we've used previously within the last week or so. Moving on, we have My Drive. My Drive is where you've saved or uploaded PPTs, PDFs, videos, audios, anything that you've personally uploaded for yourself, you'll find here, including your Blackboards that you've saved. The next thing we're going to take a look at is org drive. Now, org drive stands for organization, and it basically holds all the organization files for each school that you work for. Right, so what that means is if we click over here, you can see we have multiple schools, right? And each one of these schools have different files. They have different curriculums and different PPTs. For example, if I go to Free Talk over here, I'm going to select courseware. And you can see under the Free Talk courseware, I've got multiple different PDFs, PPTs, different lessons, different lesson material, all over here. This is what we're going to be using in our classes, and it's really, really important. So just to review, Home is for any recently accessed files that you've used. My Drive is for all of the files that you've uploaded yourself. And Org Drive, that is going to be for the schools that you work for. All of their files and PPTs are going to be uploaded here. Okay, from here, we're going to go back to our home screen, and let's take a look more closely at our actual class. Now, over here you can see we have a class for our student 6. His class is at 6 o'clock in China. I've got my computer set to Chinese time, and that is going to be in 3 hours and 16 minutes. Over here it'll tell you what number class this is. So this is the 92nd class that I've had with him. The teacher is me, and it's a 25-minute class. If I click on that class, it's going to take me here. Now, it generally always opens up to course, and I'll explain a little bit more about course in other videos, but this is just the basics of ClassIn. If we click on chat over here, this is where we're able to communicate with our students. So we can send them after class previews or reviews. We can also communicate with his mom or dad about whether he's taking class or not. Any kind of communication is all going to happen over here. Right, we can do cool things like send emojis or some stickers, right? Really simple stuff. We can also send files from our drive or from our computer. If we look over here to the bottom right hand side, this is a temporary class icon. If we click on this, it's going to open a 15-minute class with our students. Next, if we go to the top, you can see that we have course, lessons, grades, collab space, and files. For this video, we're just going to be looking at the basics again. So we're going to click on lessons, and we're going to ignore course, grades, collab space, and files. Lessons let you know how many lessons you have with the students. So how many you have left with them and how many you've had with them. It's also a great place to go to if you want to prepare for your classes. Again, I'll explain that in another video. Okay, so now that we know all about the tools on our left-hand side of our home screen, we also know all about how to communicate with our students and how many lessons we have left with them. Let's go to our Blackboard. Now, when you open your Blackboard, it's going to look like this. There's nothing here, and again, because it's your first time using it, it might be a little intimidating, but I'm here to help you. Before we get started, let's take a look at some basic settings that are going to make our experience a lot better. So if we go to the top over here, we click on these 4 boxes, click on Settings. We're going to start off with General. Now, under General, you can select Standard or Large Screen. I personally prefer teaching with a standard screen, but if you select large screen, it's going to look like this. Right, so this is what large screen looks like. It's not ideal to use if you're using a mouse, but if you're using an iPad, then it might be best for you. What's great about it is that you can move your tools around and make them a little bit more hidden and less accessible, I suppose. Personally, I don't really like it. I'm more of a standard screen user myself, so let's go back to standard screen. Cool. Now we're back to comfort. So if we click on settings again, right, you can see underneath that it has seating area, so we can allow it to show that we're in the classroom or hide. Now, obviously when we're in classes, we want to be shown. It doesn't give us this option, but this is just for the Blackboard, and it's great to practice, right? So now if it shows that I'm in the classroom, I can move my camera around and basically practice how I want to position myself on the board for teaching. So I'll put myself back up here, go back to settings. For this training video, I'm going to hide myself, like this. Right, the next thing is that we have prompt tone for hands up. Now, on the bottom right over here, you can see we have this hands up button. If your students want to ask a question, they might use this button. Generally, if we have more than one student in a class, then they tend to use this. Sometimes you might miss it, especially if we have like 10 students in a class. So I choose to have a ding sound, but you can have other sounds as well. Tick, ding dong, and a ding. Right, I'm going to change it to ding dong. Alright, so as for settings, that's pretty much all we need to worry about here. Camera is going to be the same as with our device testing. It's just going to show us our camera and our audio. The next thing that we have is classroom background. So as you can see here, I've got these striped lines. Generally, for most of you, when you open your ClassIn Blackboard, it's going to look like this. I don't really like it. I prefer to have something nice to look at. And you can upload your own images as well. Just like this. Right. The next thing we're going to take a look at is virtual background. So I'm going to bring myself to the screen again, select virtual background, and then let's select this. Okay. So while virtual background is great for if you're sitting in a room that doesn't necessarily have the best background, but as you can see, if I pick my hands up, they start to disappear. Unless you have a green screen behind you, this is going to constantly happen where your hands disappear and then reappear, and then it's just not functional, right? My personal belief is that if you are sitting in a messy background, I would rather go to virtual background and select blur, right? That way, at least you can still see my hands. So if we're using flashcards, physical flashcards that we have, or if we're doing TPR, the students can still see our hands without them disappearing or without the flashcards disappearing. It's especially prevalent if you have flashcards with a white background. So just personal preference, but yeah. For teachers, just as a general tip, for teachers who don't have a great background or haven't set up their classroom background with teachery things, like ABC charts and things like that, what you can do is you can go get a room divider. They're usually very cheap. Get a room divider, put that behind you, and then that way you can just close it up and pack it away when you're done. Right, so if we go back up to general, I'm going to hide myself away and let's continue. Okay, so in terms of settings, that's pretty much all that we have to take a look at. Okay, so now let's start with the most important parts of our Blackboard, and that is going to be our tools on the right-hand side over here. You might find that your toolbox is hidden away, so all you would have to do is click on this little button over here to bring it out. Now, for this video, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. So, if we click on this icon over here called Student List, what it's going to do is it's going to bring up this screen. Now, because we don't have any students in our class, it's not really going to show us the information that we need. So I'm going to exit this and go down here. If we take a look at it, you'll see that in the student list, we're going to have stage, auth, silence, mute, camera, rewards, raise, remove, and device. So let's start from the very beginning, stage. Stage shows us that our student is on stage. We'll see them at the top over here like this. If we want to remove our student from the stage for whatever reason, we can click on this. However, sometimes they accidentally do get removed when we try to reward them, and let me show you how that happens. So if we take a look over here, if we hover our mouse over our face or our student's face, we're going to see different icons. If we hover over our student's face, and we can see these 4 icons over here. The first one is authorization. That means that they can draw on our board. The second one is the mute button to mute their microphone. The third one is a reward. If we left click on it, we can give them a reward. If we right click on it, it takes the reward away. Now, this button over here removes them from the stage. This does happen to teachers who do their first classes because you feel a little bit nervous. So you might try to reward them, your mouse might slip and you might remove them from the stage, and then you might panic because you can't see them anymore. The option to bring them back would be to go here and click this. However, if we have multiple students in a class, this is just going to rotate the students in and out of the class. So if we have 2 students, it's going to bring the other student who was off stage on stage and send the student who was on stage off stage, which is problematic. So the best thing that we can do is go down to our student list over here, and then just click this to highlight it yellow to bring all of our students back on stage. Following that, we have authorization. We can see which students are allowed to draw on our board. Also, if we hover over them, you'll see that the crown icon is yellow. Then we have silence. If we click this, then it will stop them from being able to chat to their friends in the chat box over here. Mute lets us know which students have their microphones muted. Camera over here, if it has a line through it, then their camera is not on. As you can see, this student over here doesn't have his camera on, so you can't see his face. Rewards let us know how many rewards you've given to the student. Raise is for when the students have clicked the hands up icon. Remove. Remove is for if you want to remove your student from the class. Now, you might think that there would be no reason for you to remove students from class, but obviously, there are certain situations in which this does happen. So what we can do is click the remove button. There's a slider over here to allow you to remove them for 5 minutes or for the entirety of the class or for no time at all, where they can come back in automatically. And then finally we have device. This lets us know what device they're using, whether it's an Android, an iPhone, iPad, or a Windows device. Right, next up we have the chat box, and this is where you are going to be able to communicate with your students and they'll be able to communicate with each other. Now, here's a pro tip for new users to ClassIn. You can communicate to your students, if their English is good enough, to write in Chinese in this box, and then you can translate it by right-clicking from here. However, for new students to ClassIn, they won't know how to do this, and maybe their English level isn't that good, so don't rely on that too much. Following that, we have our toolbox. Now, there are many tools in the toolbox, and I suggest the best thing that you do is go onto the blackboard and try to click on all of them to see what they do. Right after the toolbox, we have something that might look a little familiar. Now, if you remember correctly, if we go to our class and we click on our drive file over here, we have all of these, which starts off with home, drive, and org drive. In our classroom, we need to be able to access those files. So if we click on this cloud over here, we're going to see exactly the same headings: home, my drive, and org drive. So you can access all the files that you need to for your class from here. More importantly, the organization that you're working for, their files will be available here for you to use while you do your classes. Right, so this is where you're going to go to open up your PPTs and PDFs. So to give you a basic idea of how that works, I'm going to click on courseware. For this example, let's go down to Think. I'll go to Think 1, right? And then I'm going to click on PPTs and then open up this PPT. Right, now you're going to see that PPT has opened up on my board. And there you go. Right, so what I'm going to do is, if I want to make this PPT bigger for everyone to see, I can click on this button so it makes it the full screen. Or I can minimize it, and what it does is puts it in the bottom left-hand corner. Right, next up we're going to take a look at the laser pointer. Now, as you can see, my laser pointer is not selected right now. So that means that the students, when they're looking at the screen, they won't be able to follow where my mouse is going. What we need to do is click on that, and now it will stay on. There's no need for us to click it off during the class. It will just stay on permanently throughout the whole duration. Following that, we have screen grab or screenshot. So how this works is, let's say we open up our PPT. Let's say I like an image, or I want to make the image larger. I can click on the screenshot, click and drag, select OK, and now the image is on the board. What's great about this is that we have the option to crop this image so we can make it smaller or larger, and we can also try to remove the background. Just so you know, removing of the background isn't perfect, as you can see. Right, it's cut out some of the lines, so it's not 100% perfect, but when it works, and it's great. Following that, we have our text tool. So if we click on the text tool, you can see at the very top, it will allow us to choose a font size. So let's choose 64, and then we can also choose a color. For this example, let's go with black. If we click on the screen, you can see now we're able to type. Okay, so moving on, we're actually going to go to this tool over here, which is our brush. So if we take a look at our brush, we first got two options at the top. Let's start with this one over here. This is a solid pen. So we can also select the boldness that we want our pen to be, or the thickness of the pen, right? We can choose whether we want it to be solid lines or dotted lines. So if we take a look, this is how that looks. This is a solid line, and then this is a dotted line. What we can do after that is we can select whether we want straight lines or circles, or if we want squares. We can also select the color of the line or the shape that we want as well, right? So if we want green squares. Now, what's interesting as well is that you can modify the color to what you like. So let's say, for example, we wanted more of a pink. Let's put it in here. There we go. And now we have a pink square. So just something for you to know, if we use our eraser will erase any squiggly lines that we've drawn. If we've selected shapes, it will not erase those shapes, and it won't erase any typing. If we want to remove these from our board, we have to select the grab tool. So what we can do is we can highlight all of these, and we can simply go to delete. Now, this grab tool also gives us other functions as well. Let's say we highlight our square green box. We can move the box all around the screen by left-clicking and dragging it. We can also change the color of the box. We can change the thickness of the box. We can also change it from a solid line to a dotted line or back. The next option is to change the color inside the box. So we can make it blue or black. We can also increase or decrease the opacity of the box. Next, we can lock the box to its position. Now, if we try to highlight it and move it around the screen, it won't move. If we click this over here, it unlocks the frame of the box. Let's go to this over here. This duplicates our box. So now you can see we have two boxes. If we go to this icon, we can change the position of the box. So we can send this box to the back, or we can bring it to the front. Let's change the color. So send it to the back and bring it to the front. Alright, and then finally, again, we can delete our box. Right, and now finally, if not the most important tool that we have on our blackboard, would be the click button. Now, you might be thinking this is just to select things on our board, but it is not. If we go to our PPTs, generally only for PPTs, it doesn't work for PDFs. For PDFs, we have to scroll up and down. But for PPTs, sometimes we could have embedded videos in the PPTs. Now, we have these direction controls here at the bottom. We can click this to go to the next part, and to the next part, and then to go back. If we click play, it also takes us to the next part. Sometimes it will play embedded animations, but generally it doesn't play embedded audios or videos. For us to do that, we have to use our click function. If we hover on the board and we click anywhere, we'll play our videos. If we go to the next page and we click on it again, you see it brings up more of our animations. If I have the drag tool selected and I left click, nothing happens. If I right click, nothing happens. If I have the draw tool selected, it's just going to draw on my board. If I have the erase tool, exactly the same thing. The only way that we can have these labels pop up is by clicking on it with the click tool. Alright, then if we take a look at the top over here, we have our microphone icon. We can switch that off and the students won't be able to hear us. Let's put it back on. We have our camera. If we turn this on, you'll see you pop up on the screen, right? And you can turn it off to remove yourself. We have our record class button, right? General settings, minimize your classroom, expand your classroom, and exit your classroom. Finally, what I want to do is, if it's your first time having a class, you might be nervous as to how you might structure yourself or position yourself on the screen of the classroom. And there's some really simple things we can do to make our lives a whole bunch easier. Before we start, let's go to our settings. We're going to go to show. And this is what our classroom is going to look like. You're going to be positioned here and the student is going to be right next to you. If we left click and drag, we can drag ourselves onto the blackboard. Now let me remove the setting, the virtual background. There we go, that's better. Okay, so you might want to move yourself to the side and then open up your PPT or your PDF, and you can see like we can try to like adjust the box to try and make it look okay, and try to put it here, or we might be at the top where our student can't see us. There is a way more efficient way to handle all of this. If we go to the settings at the top, we go to classroom layouts and we select 3 split screen on right or 3 split screen on left, whichever you feel comfortable with, right? Select that. What we do is left click on ourselves and then hold the shift button. You'll see these green blocks appear. What's great is if we drag ourselves into the block and we let go of the left click button, now it's snapped us into place. That is the perfect position to be on the screen. We can have our student positioned right here below us, right? And the same for our PPTs. So let's say we open up a PPT, right? We move it around, find the box, popped it right into the box. This is the perfect size for PPTs. PDFs are a little different, right? Because we have to scroll up and down for PDFs. Now, another thing that you might be wondering is how you can scroll up and down. So obviously you can drag this button over here, or if you have a mouse like I have, you can literally just roll it up and down. All right, so this should help you kind of conduct your first classroom, because you can see my face is big enough for the students to see me. You'll be able to see the student at the bottom. Easy to reward them from here. Easy for them, like big enough for them to see all the material. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you understand a little bit more about how to use ClassIn and how to use this Blackboard specifically. To exit your Blackboard, all you simply have to do is, you see that button in the top right hand corner there, the X? Just click that and then you're done. Just like that, back to the home screen.